Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, you're right. I didn't know where the heck you were going with that, but you're absolutely right.
Welcome to the Bible in 1 Year podcast, brought to you by two Brits and a Bible. If you like the idea of a casual yet meaningful chat about the Bible with a couple of mates listening, something in here could be good for you.
Today is day 231, covering Jeremiah 26, 27, 28, and 29. If you need a brief overview of those chapters, they are in the description.
I shan't continue with the Welsh accent, purely because I feel like my first point could be quite contentious. So
Okay.
this will be fun.
Arguably less contentious in Welsh.
Yeah, arguably so. So effectively straight in here with 26:11, and it's saying this man should be sentenced to death, talking about Jeremiah, because he has prophesied against this city. You've heard it with your own ears. And the reason they want him to be put to death is because he's prophesying against the city. Like, they're putting so much emphasis on the city itself rather than themselves and their salvation and where they're at in their walk with God. It's more about the city than the relationship with God. And
Right.
I think so often, like, if something becomes more important than God himself, that becomes an issue. And the contentious part, and what it reminds me of, is the way Americans view the American flag. And I don't get it. It's like there is so much emphasis on, oh, let's sing to the flag. And I'm like, it's a flipping flag. It's a bit of fabric. Like, it's almost become more of a symbol, more of an icon, or whatever you want to call it, than God, potentially, to some people.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, you're right. I didn't know where the heck you were going with that, but you're absolutely right. There are some nationalists, some who would call themselves Christian potentially, who, probably put the flag pretty close to God. But I will say that's becoming less and less of a thing. But yeah, any such idolatry, absolutely, like, not good. Nationalism is not good, especially. I think it's okay to want to defend your country and its values to some extent, but I think when you get to those kinds of levels, absolutely not. Interestingly, my pastor was talking about Jonah a couple of weeks back, and Jonah was like a staunch Israelite nationalist.
Yeah.
If you look at the way that Jonah is, and part of what God is working on Jonah through his whole journey and stuff is to break some of that national pride that he has, because God isn't nationally proud like that. Of course, God is for everyone. So, just because you happen to be from a certain country doesn't make you better than anyone else.
Yeah.
Makes you better or worse is whether you're cloaked in Jesus' righteousness or not, basically.
Exactly. So then sort of out the back of that, Jeremiah is obviously pretty much sentenced to death because of what he said against the city. And then that sort of made me realize that actually things can look so bleak at times, but keep trusting God's plan. Even if it leads you to death, there is salvation out the back of it. And sort of, God's plan is ultimately going to be far better than what we can envision, even if it means leading to death in this life.
100%. And that links perfectly to my first point, Jeremiah 26, verse 15. Be assured, however, that if you put me to death, you will bring the guilt of the innocent blood on yourselves and on this city and on those who live in it. For in truth, the Lord has sent me to you to speak all these words in your hearing. So I just said, Jezza being a total badass. He's not scared of the mob. He's not scared of the threats. He's like, if you kill me, you're putting blood on your own hands. I know where I'm going. I know God sent me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we should all pray for that level of courage. Really.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. And the reality is we live in this little delicate society in the West, but there are people who that is their reality, and they are the true heroes of the faith right now.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. People dying for the faith all the time. China, there's a lot of people dying for the faith. Middle East, I watched an amazing documentary about the Iranian church.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously it's illegal to be a Christian in Iran technically, right? And Iraq and those Middle Eastern countries. And it's called, I want to say it was called The Pack of Wolves, but it's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Okay.
Check that out.
Cool.
And that, they'll send out 20 missionaries and only 10 will come back because 10 will get murdered just for trying to preach the gospel. Absolute heroes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, don't be afraid to evangelize in America or Europe or wherever, people. Like, worst that will happen is someone might say something slightly mean. Like, I don't believe in your God.
Yeah, someone will
like,
take offense.
oh no. You know. Anyways, we should probably keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. So 27:14. This is kind of what I was referring to a little bit yesterday, because I mean, firstly, there was the section earlier in Jeremiah 27 where he's telling Jeremiah to make a yoke out of straps and crossbars, put it on his neck, and then prophesying. It's like one of those, like, doesn't make sense. That doesn't sound like that's something God would say, but he did trust God's voice. But the part in here where Jeremiah is prophesying against, well, that they're going to serve Nebuchadnezzar when the Babylonians take over. And then there's this other false prophet called Zedekiah who rocks up being like, nah, God's going to come and kick his ass and all this stuff. And the king has to basically try and work out who to listen to. And like, how on earth would you hear the correct voice? And the thing that it sort of reminded me of was, David Attenborough fan, was penguins. When penguins like go out and catch all the fish and they come back and there's just this sea of thousands of penguins, all of them this absolute cacophony of noise. And somehow they find the one penguin that looks exactly the same as every other flipping penguin that is their mate. And it's just through that fine tuning to recognizing the voice of the one that is their wife. And that is where we need to get to with God, where we just fine tune his voice over every other voice and all the other surrounding noise to understand what he is saying as opposed to what the rest of the world is saying.
100%. One other way that the king would work it out in a very short point, Jeremiah 28:17, in the 7th month of the same year, Hananiah the prophet died. So the king be like, all right, I guess that was the false one because God struck him down.
Yeah.
We can't talk too long about this. What you just said about the penguins really interests me as well, because you could argue, since God is in control of everything, like it's not even the penguins doing any of it. It's literally that's just God's glory, right? Like he's just like weaving all these penguins intricately.
Yeah.
And all the scientists and biologists are like, how the heck are they doing that? God's up there like, I'm just moving it all around. So I'm in 29. I think you are too.
Yeah, beginning of 29 for me. We're about the same point, so you crack on.
All right, cool. So 29 voice 5. Build houses and settle down, plant gardens and eat what they produce. And this is very much actually your philosophy, and I love it. We could be near the end times right now, and we could be near Jesus' second coming. You know, probably not, but we can trust that, you know, the fact that we have God and we just rest our faith in him means we can just continue to build our life, our house, our family in a Christ-centered way and not worry too much about all of this. That's exactly what he's saying here, right? Just go off, build your houses, settle down, plant gardens, eat what, you know, just chill, just go live your life now, basically.
Exactly, dude. That's good. And that sort of ties into my point and my, like you said, my philosophy is like you can choose to see the good in a bad situation. And life just becomes better rather than choosing to focus on the bad. Like you think about Paul and Silas in prison, just choosing to start singing worship songs. Like they're in a pretty bad old situation, and they're like, let's just have a little sing song, shall we? Bit of kumbaya. And like the rest of the prison guards, like all that kind of craziness ensues, isn't it? So find the good, not the bad.
100%. Love that, mate. So we've both got one final one to go. I would love you to have the floor.
Right, sure. So this part is one of the most famous verses in the Bible. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you, plans to give you hope and a future, yada, yada, yada. It gets recited all over the place. The thing that very rarely gets mentioned is that the plans I have for you that's good is after an imminent 70 years of slavery, not slavery, of like...
captivity, submission to the Babylonians.
No, it's like, actually the plans that he has are long-term plans for us that are good. Doesn't mean it's going to be plain sailing all the way through. It's just this whole focus on the good and trusting God.
Yeah, love that, man. That's so important. It's not just immediately great, like you say. It's fun to take time. All right, it's the end of the episode, isn't it?